Hey, y'all. Welcome to Questions You Didn't Ask. Did you know that this very spot could be showcasing your business or event? Whether it's an audio ad on our podcast or a visual ad on our new YouTube station, or even both, we've got the space for you. Niasha Fray Consulting is reaching a growing audience of over 1,000 leaders who are passionate about health equity, social justice, and civil rights activism. These are professionals just like you, working across higher education, research, healthcare, nonprofit, government, and even public health sectors. If you're ready to get your message in front of a dedicated and engaged audience, send me an email at Niasha Fray Consulting, LLC at gmail.com. Let's talk about how we can help you connect with the people who need to hear about your services and products that advance health equity and wellness. Don't miss out. Get in the mix and let's make an impact together. Welcome back to Questions You Didn't Ask with me, Niasha Fray, and my guest, Jesse McCoy, as we continue the series, Justice or Just Us, How Law, Health, and Equity Collide in America. Let's pick up where we left off. You have brought up exactly the thing that really pushed me to have this series and invite you on. We have a presidential candidate with multiple felony convictions.
Yep.
Running in the 2024 elections.
And more on the way.
Mm-hmm. And this is an obvious inconsistency and exception to the rule and law that we are experiencing, right? Because the compromised Supreme Court, as you mentioned earlier, and probably some other judges that were appointed by 45 as well, said it was okay for him to be a presidential candidate. It's okay for a convicted felon to run for the highest office in this land and potentially in the world. But like you mentioned, Jaquan and Tanisha cannot get a bond insured certificate in order for them to become a barber.
Yep.
They cannot qualify for housing. They cannot qualify for food stamps. They are going to get released from prison. They might get a program to support them for the first 6 months, even though this conviction is going to be on their record. And not even just a conviction, the charge. They might have beat the conviction. They might even, the charge is going to be on their record for the rest of their lives. But the only support that is available for them is within the first 6 months of release. There's no support if you beat your charge.
Right.
And you had to miss work to fight the charge.
Yep, his job gone. Yep.
The job's gone. But this rich white man, this is, for those people that are not sure, and I don't think that these people listen to my show, but for those people that are not sure if white supremacy and institutionalized racism doesn't exist, if they are still, in the fantasy of the idea that we are a post-racial society, this example of the 45th president running for the presidency again after January 6th, after inciting a riot on our Capitol, which I took personal offense to. And I think most Americans should, because that's our Capitol building. Who are you to go in there and trash it? What are you talking about? Not to mention people who are Africans who were enslaved, built it in all of its glory, and you chose to unleash a violent coup on our Congress and your vice president. No one wants
and
to
the police.
talk about.
Don't forget
and
the police.
And the police.
Blue lives didn't matter that day.
Right. But you've got this extreme inconsistency and exception. What are some of the inconsistencies and exceptions to the rules that you've observed over the course of your career? And how does it make your work easier or harder when you're working for the human and civil rights of people in our
Mhm.
community?
I think that all rules have exceptions, right? Like
Mm.
part of being a lawyer is, people give you, you know, 30,000 books of rules, statutes, and stuff in cases, decisions. But at the heart of it is challenge everything, right? Challenge everything. Now, there are some battles that I challenge that I do not win, right? There are some battles that I challenge that they might consider it and think it's the right thing to do, but it's not the law, right?
Mhm.
And then there are some battles that are in line with the law. So you're all over the place. But what I'll say is, I have personally observed that rules are designed for the masses. Like, they're not designed for the elite. They're not designed, there's always a workaround for everybody else, right?
Mm.
On top of that, rules are only as good as their enforcement mechanism. And if
Mm.
the enforcement mechanism is busy looking one way while people are doing it on the other way, then, it is what it is. So when you think about things like, I can remember the Wall Street brokers that were getting TARP money and having cocaine fueled yacht parties with tax dollars, right? Like, so, and it was like,
Going
let's
hard
do
in
it
the
again,
paint.
right? Whereas with this, PPP loan fraud, they were coming after people throwing folk in jail for asking
With the
for this.
exception of who?
Yeah.
Brett
Oh,
Favre.
absolutely. Absolutely. So my thing is, everybody, understands kind of these systems work only to the benefit of those who they are who put them in place and who know the loopholes to get around them. That's why everybody gets lawyers to try to figure out what the loopholes are. But the loopholes themselves don't even help you. They only help you if you are what Paul Mooney would say, the complexion for the protection, right?
Mhm.
So
Of the collection.
it's sad, but again, I've always said that I think America's biggest problem is racism. Like, we do not want to let racism go at all for some reason, because if we had an even system, most of these rules would be fine. But even our Supreme Court, right? A lot of people
Mm.
are shocked now because the Supreme Court is now seeming compromised. You got Alito with the Stop the Steal flag flying at his house. You got Clarence
Mhm.
Thomas getting luxury trips and yachts from conservative donors, all this stuff. Even with that, this isn't the first time that the United States Supreme Court has been compromised, right?
Right.
When Dred Scott argued all the way from St. Louis to the Supreme Court that he should be a free man, Justice Taney said a black man has no rights that a white man has the honor, right? And that was law for 50 years, right? So I think what I have developed kind of a mentality of is, I'm never going to allow a court system to have the final say on how things operate. The way our system is set up is the courts get to make decisions that are in their purview. Legislators get to make rules that they feel like are in their purview, and the executive gets to enforce the things that they care about, right?
Mm.
So what it means to me is, you need to have hooks in all three branches of government, right? So when
Mm.
the court don't want to act right, make sure you got an executive that's going to be okay. When the executive don't want to act right, make sure you got a Congress that's going to be okay, or a General Assembly that's going to be okay. And I know that's a lot of
Vote
work.
in every election, please. Not
In
just every
every
4 years, every 2 years.
and vote down
Sorry.
ballot, because a lot of people, again, at the barbershop,
Local elections matter
yes,
the most.
yes, people get upset with me and they be like, no, you need to tell Joe, like, I know Joe Biden personally. You need to tell Joe that he need to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, first off, Joe don't control Durham public school system. So that has nothing to do with Joe. I'd be wasting his time if I said that. Yeah, if Iran is invading North Carolina, that's different, right?
Right.
That's different. But Joe, so one is just trying to give people the civics education of, like, where do you go?
Mhm.
But then once you get the information following through, right? And I
Mhm.
think the thing that I love about local elections is that those candidates are accessible, right?
Mhm.
You may never meet the president, right? You may never see a president in, like, outside of TV, right?
Mhm.
But your mayor, your city council, you see them. They at the grocery store. Their
Yep.
kids go to the same school your kids go to, unless they these like weird charter whatever situation.
So weird.
Their kids go to your school, so they are approachable, and you can hold them accountable at the meetings, or if you see them out and about and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? You may or may not see a governor, but you probably will feel the impact of the governor's enforcement policies. One of the things that I was really happy for was during the period of COVID when we were at risk of mass eviction because those weren't working. We had a governor who was bold enough to step out from everybody else and say, no, I'm going to do my own moratorium on eviction to stop people from being evicted. And he paid for it because then you had the crazies that went to Jones Street and went to downtown Raleigh and, complaining and threatening them or whatever. But at the same time, he did something that was from a position of leadership that he should have done that I appreciate.
Right.
So there are so many levers, and I think it's easy to get discouraged when you want the person to be on the top of that ticket to win. And when they don't win, like the Hillary laws, like I was done with America. I was like, oh, I can't believe that y'all gonna let this man who ain't never worked in federal government be a president of the United States, and this lady spent her whole career here. Like, whatever, you can love or hate her, cool, but you can't tell me she was more qualified. Like, that's not.
Well, we got another qualified one that he gonna have to run against. So we about to see. We about to find out.
Worse. This is even worse because this is not just qualified, but it's like HBCU educated. So everybody, if you've been to a homecoming, if you've been to a step show, right? If you've been to anything associated, I don't care if you went to eat at Olean's or any restaurant, social restaurant by HBCU.
Talk about Olean's. Yes.
You need to be the first one up in this election. Don't even wait till November 5th. Early vote. Go ahead, early vote.
In North Carolina, early voting starts October 17th, by the way. Thursday, October 17th. You don't have to wait till November 5th.
Don't wait.
And actually, I think this is going to air in November. But either way, we are promoting. We are promoting. We are encouraging. And this isn't just about every 4 years. This is, look, you don't like what happened in 2024? Gear up and get ready for 2026. And like Jesse just said, hey, all power. This is the other thing. All power to the people who are brave enough to run for office. And if you happen to be one of those people who say, I've had enough, I'm tired of talking about it at the hair salon, I'm tired of hearing my husband talking about his conversations at the barbershop, I'm ready to do something, put your name down and let us know that you out there, because we need you.
Absolutely. And don't feel like you have to be on your own either. I think that's what the coalition is about. If you've already been putting the work into your community, then your community should show up for you when you do stuff. If they rock with you like that. Now, if you've been like half behind doing it, like I don't know about that. It happens too. Community keeps you humble. Community keeps you humble. Community keeps you focused. Community can cut you down as much as they can build you up, right? So I think it's important to be grounded. I don't think that running for an office should be the first time that people in the community see you out and about. I think if they already know you and they see you run for election, they're probably going to have a certain level of enthusiasm about seeing somebody they know getting into the position. You already going to get questions about things and privileges that they want you to extend.
The hookup. If you're enjoying the show as much as we love creating it, consider showing your support by buying us a cup of coffee. Visit buymeacoffee.com/Niasha Fray O. That's buymeacoffee.com/Niasha Fray O. All one word. Each cup is just $5, and every single one helps us continue to produce, develop, and sustain the high-quality content you've come to expect from Questions You Didn't Ask. Thank you for your continued support, and let's keep the conversation going. So let's start talking about some solutions then. I come from, of course, the public health background and focused on health equity and deeply involved in this space. And we often look for systems-based solutions. I often look for systems-based solutions to improve the condition of vulnerable populations. What legal or policy interventions do you think could have the most meaningful impact on improving health and life outcomes for people, especially those with felony convictions?
So felony convictions, I'll say again, I'm not probably the expert on those things at this point.
Right,
I'm more of a housing guy. So I can
right.
definitely tell you the housing
Yeah,
side.
talk about it.
One, right to housing. Right to housing. We need to revamp how we do housing in America. There are nations who have rights to housing who are doing this better than us.
Mhm,
So we need to revamp a right to housing. That's followed by a right to counsel. So
mhm,
anytime that somebody is getting evicted, they need to be able to be provided an attorney who can help them, because 90% of the landlords are going to have attorneys, and
mhm,
most people who come to eviction court don't, and that's why the eviction numbers and rates are what they are. And then other than that, development policies, right? So there's a lot of issues around this term affordable housing.
mm,
Affordable housing is kind of a misnomer, because affordability as it stands right now is dictated based on a HUD value, which is
mhm,
a national measure. But
mm.
a lot of people in Durham County don't make what somebody at the national level would be. So affordable
Right.
housing is essentially based for people who make $65,000 a year. But what if
Mm.
you in Durham County, you making 22.5, right?
Right.
It's not going to be affordable for you. So we need to
No.
make a more localized metric for how we deem things to be affordable, and then stand behind the encouragement of development for those places. And if
Mhm.
developers don't want to come into those places because there's not a profit motive, well, we need to look at the inventory we already have and say, well, what's being abandoned? What can be used, right? So I think those are like policies to help in the housing space. Now, in criminal justice space, I think that the first thing is I'm a big proponent of diversion programs. I
Mhm.
don't know, like at this point, since I haven't done criminal defense in a long time, I don't know how far they've expanded them. But we used to have people go to food banks, Salvation Army, whatever the case may be. And instead of us throwing you in jail or putting a record, giving you a record,
Mhm.
you would do work for, let's say, 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever, and then get a letter from the supervisor at that facility. And I
Mhm.
think that was helpful for a couple different reasons. So one, it was helpful because it kept you from getting a record. Number
Amen.
two, it was helpful because now you have a connection to the community. There's
Mhm.
somebody, if you ever say, I got some free time on my hands, let me holler at Donna at the food bank. Like, let me, like, you have people now, right?
Right.
Number two, sometimes those same places turn around and need people that they can employ to work there.
Mhm.
So if they have some funds they come into, and they know that you're a hard worker and you enjoyed yourself being there, they might have a job for you. So now you got less time to be out in the street doing what you do, and more time to be doing something productive and
Mhm.
build a relationship with someone who could write a recommendation for you if you want to go to school or whatever the case may be. And then on top of that, like, I know this sounds crazy, but especially in Durham County, we have a lot of progressive judges who look
Mm.
like us, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I hear in the back door when we talking in the chamber, people don't want to send folk that look like them to jail, right? They will.
Mhm.
They will. Don't get it twisted. They will, but they
But they
don't
don't want
want to,
to.
right?
Mhm.
If you can have a legitimate reason for what happened or for what you did, and we can provide an alternative to the
Right.
punishment, I think people are more apt to accept that. We want jails to be for the people who just determine that they're not gonna make it work, right?
Right.
If you want to threaten the whole society, you want to be a danger to everybody, yeah, maybe you belong in jail or prison. That's different. But
Right.
most people, like, I did criminal defense for a long time. The
Mhm.
number of people I represented who did the class A, B, C felony stuff, very small, very small.
Mhm.
The number of people I represented who did property crimes or who did crimes of poverty or
Mhm.
something like
Mhm.
that, astronomical. Like,
Right.
if you took out the people who had like substance abuse issues and the people who had property crimes issues, you wouldn't
Mhm.
have jail. Right? You
Right.
wouldn't have a
Right.
jail at all. And then there are so many people, because I did criminal defense in Durham and Wake County. In
Mhm.
Wake County, the homeless population commits crimes in October, November when it gets
'Cause it's
cold,
cold. Right.
so they can have 3 meals and a place to live. That is the saddest thing in the world. Like, I don't want somebody going to jail just so they can have security and a place to live. Like, we need to do better about caring about our fellow man and investing in things that are going to create housing, create opportunity. So
Mhm.
those are the immediate policies. The next policy is an employment policy. I think people deserve a livable wage.
Yes.
And I think that livable wage is relative because, like what is livable in Durham may not necessarily be Charlotte, right? Like, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important that people be able to feel like they have some kind of incentive to participate in the economic system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love a world where people are able to pay their bills and have money to go to the DPAC every now and then, right?
Right.
Like enjoy it, see the fruits of your labor, see what you
Right.
work for,
And for
and
those
know
of
that.
you outside of North Carolina, the
Oh yeah,
DPAC is the Durham Performing Arts Center. We do have a global audience, thank the Lord.
amen.
So we're talking about going to see, concerts and music and enrichment. Enjoy your
Yes.
life, because it's not all about it's not all about. I said because I'm just so frustrated.
Mm,
It's not all about working and just paying the bills.
yep.
Health and wellness is also about enjoying your life,
Absolutely.
enjoying your world, enjoying your community, having time to connect with your loved ones, having time to make a new friend. This is how we have social cohesion. And when
Hmm.
we are cohesive, then we help each other. And when we help each other, you have a lot less people in trouble. And with a lot less people in trouble, you don't have as many people in the court system and in the
Hmm.
incarcerated system. And yes, that means that maybe some of those prisons and jails, as Jesse said, might go out of business and be no longer necessary. But
Hmm.
I say to them, just like I say to a lot of nonprofits, your job is to go out of business.
Hmm.
That should be, in my humble opinion, that should be the objective of all of these types of institutions that separate people or are there to fill the gap for people. We want everyone to eat. And as Jesse
Absolutely.
said earlier, one way or the other, they're going to eat.
Right.
And so what we want is for them to be on the right side of the table and not the wrong side of the table. But
Correct.
I interrupted. I'm sorry. You were talking.
Oh
You
no,
were
no,
on a
no. That was
roll
great.
there.
That was great. I'm snapping my fingers over it. That was great. No, but I agree with you. The biggest thing for the people who have financial ability to do so, I would strongly encourage you to travel outside of the country, right?
Mhm,
Just like you said, I think we are bred into this work mentality. Work, 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 work.
mhm,
And then next thing you know, you worked at a job for 20 years, you pass away, they're gonna replace you in a week, right? And keep the work going. But the
mhm,
people who really matter, like your family, your friends, like those are the people that can't replace you, right?
mhm,
So you need to go out here and see what it's like. Like I can guarantee you guys, you can go to Ghana, you can go to Spain, you can go to the Caribbean. There are people who ain't living like this, right? You'll be like, oh wow, like it's a whole life. Like you could really, really enjoy yourself, have cultural events and all this stuff. Like there's a world of stuff. And I think it changes your perspective when you come back to realize that if you do something here, you should do it. Of course, everybody has to make their money. I get that. But you should do it either because you're passionate about it or you should do it because it's a means to an end for something else that you're trying to expose your family to. And I just think we are misled just because they're going to make it seem like, we got the stigma of being lazy on us. So we got to work double hard and not do that. And then we got to keep up with our bills. It's ever increasing and whatever. All those things are metrics that are being used to control and manipulate your contribution to the
mhm.
society.
Right. So, as we wrap up, and this conversation is hard to wrap up, like I said, Jesse, I might be in your inbox again asking you to
Okay,
come back
no problem.
because this has just been so wonderful and rich. And you've touched on so many things, doorways and pathways that we could go down for the enrichment of our audience and our community. I appreciate it so much. And one of the other things I appreciate about you is that you have built a coalition and you invest in your coalition. And so, as you partner with other lawyers, professors, students, courts, community organizations, government entities, what gives you hope? And what organizations or advocacy efforts inspire you the most?
So that's a great question. What gives me hope? I work with law students, right? And law students who come to me who don't always know how litigation works or know how law works, they get a chance to spend a semester with me and learn by doing, right? So we put them in court to advocate for the people, and oftentimes it exposes them to folks in a way of life that they've never seen before. And they realize that it didn't take that much of your personal time to make a huge difference in the life of somebody else, right? And you take that skill with you to wherever you go, because most of my students are going to go to New York, Los Angeles, London, or Tokyo, right? So you take that skill with you wherever you go, and that skill is going to propel you once you get your financial resources and all that to do good for the community. So I've got the first female attorney in Pakistan was one of my students. What did she do after graduation? She went to Pakistan and created a pathway for women who wanted to be attorneys. Like, that's powerful stuff.
I love
And
it.
they come in with a lot of notions about who they want to be, like what they want to change. And I want to encourage and nurture that. So one, I'm always going to be optimistic because every year the students get younger and younger and got more access to technology, and they always want to do cool stuff. As far as organizations, so this I may be a bit old school about, but I try to read at least once a month about the old battles for Thurgood Marshall, Carol Moseley Braun, like all those old school, like NAACP civil rights movement, legal defense fund cases. Because
Yes.
to me, the things that I'm dealing with, while they may be equivalent in magnitude, they are not equivalent in day-to-day struggle, like what
Mm,
folks had to deal with when Thurgood Marshall got to drive into the city and get out before the newspaper article come up. Because
mm,
so I feel like those are the things that inspire me. It's like, okay, I can get through this. Nobody's trying to firebomb my car and all that stuff.
mm.
I can get through this. The other thing is I also look at kind of the trends. So I'm like, look, at a time when they were doing this, it was a small cadre of Black people who Charles Hamilton Houston had picked up to do these cases. But
Mm-hmm.
now we got Black people everywhere. Like, it's folks doing all kinds of cool stuff. And they might not necessarily be able to give time for litigation efforts at the
Mm-hmm.
federal level, but they might have money to support it. They might have a good word they can put in a newspaper or some publication
Mm-hmm.
to support it. They might call their friend who's a congressperson to
Mm-hmm.
support it. So we have a lot more resources to be able to navigate some of the changes that we want to see. As far as people who are on the ground, like, I'm always going to give a special shout out to another federal rattler of ours, Dawn Blagrove over at Emancipate NC.
All
She
right.
is she is awesome, phenomenal. So if you all don't know Dawn Blagrove at Emancipate NC, they have a small offshoot, but they are actually doing everything to combat over policing, to protect the community, to file lawsuits, to appeal things to the highest level when they need to, and to make sure that the community's voice is heard in all things that are happening in Wade County. So Emancipate NC, I really love what they do. If things were different, I probably would have tried to and work with Emancipate NC, but I'm in my passion now. I'm enjoying what I do. But yeah, I'm exposed to students at all levels. So I'm mentoring middle and high school students. I oftentimes talk to college kids. I have a pre-law fellowship program at Duke that I direct that has college kids who are interested in law school. They come and I get to learn the college kids. I got law school students. So me, as long as I'm going to be around students, I know that there's somebody who at least has notions of changing something. And all I have to do is empower them with the information and education to be able to do it. Lastly, I do want to give a shout out to people, the good folks at Legal Aid in North Carolina, because I learned most of my housing law work from them. The great folks at the Durham County Public Defender's Office, because I learned how to be criminal defense attorney from them. Shout out to Dawn Baxter over there. And, really, I want to embrace North Carolina Central, Wake Forest, and Duke for giving me opportunities to be able to teach, because they didn't have to bring me in, right? They could have told me no when I applied, but they saw value in bringing me in and exposing me to their students. And last but not least, all of those things would pale in comparison to Florida A&M University.
Whoop, whoop.
They came out and got me out of North Durham, North Carolina. It was like, come on down here. We don't care what you look like. We don't care you broke. We gonna make you into something, right? And they honored their promise. So I will
Yes,
always
indeed.
love Florida A&M for that, and it's the best network. Arguably, I think the best HBCU, but that's just me.
You're not the only one.
Okay, just checking. Just checking. But yeah, so definitely happy, and I'm glad to see that, we're continuing to expand. I've read an article earlier about, record enrollment at all HBCUs.
Yes.
That's great. And so hopefully, this is just a focus of what we're going to be doing in the future. And lastly, I want to make sure that everybody knows, don't go where you are tolerated. Go where you are loved, right?
Nourished and loved.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. I love it. I love it. I love it. So this is in conclusion of our awesome series with Jesse McCoy. And I just want to say thank you for being here with us and for just pouring so much into me, pouring so much into our audience. And also those shout outs are awesome. We love giving shout outs. And we I just want to say thank you again for being here.
Well, I appreciate you for having me. And, I'm a fan. I know you're always out here doing the good work anyway. So anytime you need me, just let me know.